At my wedding, my in-laws humiliated my 6-year-old daughter in front of 107 guests. "You are not a daughter. You are mommy's regret," they told her. My sister-in-law agreed. My fiancé didn't. He got up and said this. His mom dropped her fork. His dad went dead pale. Weddings are supposed to start with butterflies. Mine started with a threat. Not an obvious one. Not the kind that comes with sirens or smoke or someone shouting, "Call 911." No, mine started with a smile. The kind you only ever see on people who can destroy your life without raising their voice. I walked into my own reception hand in hand with my daughter, Ivy, still half convinced I was dreaming. She looked like a tiny woodland angel someone had airdropped into a chandelier showroom. Her dress had a bow so big it kept swiveling like it was trying to rotate her entire soul. She squeezed my fingers. "Mom," she whispered, "everyone's staring." "They're staring because you're beautiful," I whispered back. That was half true. They were staring because she was mine, and because my new in-laws had never quite forgiven me for arriving in their son's life with a child already attached. Like I'd shown up at a gala carrying a backpack full of snacks. I spotted them at the head table, Veronica and Henry, smiling like we were all extras in their personal photo shoot. Sophie, their daughter, lounged beside them in a dress that could fund a small art museum. She lifted her glass at me in a "Congrats, brave little pauper" sort of way. My husband. Wow, husband. Daniel squeezed my hand once more before being pulled away for pictures. I watched him go, feeling that stupid, swelling love I still wasn't used to. Then I looked down at Ivy. Her eyes were darting around the room like she was waiting for someone to tell her she was standing in the wrong place. "It's okay," I murmured. "It's just a party." She nodded, unsure. I should have known the night was about to detonate right there. But instead, I did what I've done my whole adult life, pretended everything was fine and hoped no one bled. Veronica stood. She tapped her champagne glass. If dread had a sound, it would be exactly that. Polished, polite, and impossible to escape. "Everyone!" she trilled, smiling at the crowd of distant relatives and semi-strangers. "As the mother of the groom, I'd like to welcome you all." My spine stiffened. Her speeches were always knives disguised as etiquette. "We are, of course, thrilled for Daniel," she continued, laying a hand on her son's shoulder like she'd sculpted him herself. "He has always made unexpected choices, but he's followed his heart, and that is what matters." People smiled politely. They didn't know what was coming. "When he told us about Kara," she said, turning her gaze toward me without warmth, "we were surprised. She wasn't the kind of partner we imagined for him, not the life path we pictured." My throat tightened. "And when we realized his future would include additional responsibilities," she added, eyes sliding pointedly to Ivy, "we had to trust Daniel knew what he was taking on." Ivy froze beside the table. She didn't understand the words, but she understood she was being talked about like she wasn't in the room. Henry nodded beside Veronica, slow and approving, like she was reading a script he'd written. Sophie didn't nod. She just smirked into her champagne, a tiny, satisfied smile that said, "Finally, someone's saying it out loud." Veronica continued smoothly, smiling as if nothing were wrong. "Some men take the traditional route. Start fresh, build from the ground up. Daniel chose a more complicated beginning, but he has always liked a challenge." A low ripple went through the guests. The kind of ripple that says everyone heard it, everyone understood it, and nobody knew where to look now. "And so," she concluded, raising her glass, "here's to Daniel, always embracing what life places in his path." Not who life placed in his path. What? The toast ended with stiff, uncomfortable applause. People clinked glasses because that's what people do when they don't know how to respond to cruelty wrapped in crystal. The quartet scrambled to start playing again, like music could fix what had shattered. Inside, I wanted to flip the entire table. Outside, I smiled. "Ivy," I whispered, kneeling beside her. "You look perfect." She stared at her shoes. "Mom," she whispered. "Am I the thing she said? The responsibility?" My chest cracked. "No," I said. "You're the best part of everything." But she didn't lift her head. She didn't believe me. I could see it. And that was the moment I felt something shift under my skin. The quiet, furious knowledge that this wasn't over. That they'd meant every word. That they'd been waiting years to say them. The night blurred again. Photos, dancing, forced small talk. But I couldn't get Ivy's expression out of my head. Then, sometime after dessert, I realized Ivy wasn't beside me. Her plate, half a slice of cake, sat abandoned at the table. My pulse spiked. I scanned the dance floor, the gift table, the hallway, and then I saw her, near a quiet corner, standing very still. Veronica was with her, straightening her dress, smiling down like she'd found a smudge she needed to polish off. I started walking toward them, still too far, still too slow. "That's better," Veronica murmured. "You want to look nice when you're around people like this." Ivy didn't answer. She looked faintly seasick. Veronica lowered her voice, leaning just a little closer. "You know, sweetheart." Her tone softened, warm like a blanket someone meant to smother you with. "You're not really a daughter here. You're mommy's regret." My heart stopped. I wasn't breathing. I'm not sure I even blinked. Ivy's face crumpled. Confusion, shame, something sharp she didn't have words for. I opened my mouth, but someone else got there first. "What did you just say?" "Daniel." He was behind me. No, beside me, jaw clenched, eyes burning with something I'd never seen aimed at another living person. Veronica straightened, mask lifting instantly. "Darling, don't be ridiculous," she said lightly. "I was simply—" "No," he said. "Stop." Her smile faltered. He stepped between her and Ivy. "Say it again." "Daniel," she hissed. "Not here." "You already did it here." Henry appeared too late, face tightening as he took in the scene. "What's going on now?" Daniel didn't look at him. He didn't look at anyone except his mother. "You told a 6-year-old she isn't a daughter," he said. "You told her she's a regret." There was a ripple around us, gasps, whispers, forks hitting plates. Veronica's face went sheet white. "I didn't. She misunderstood. Kara always exaggerates." "I heard you," Daniel said. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. He turned, walked straight back toward the center of the reception, and picked up the nearest microphone. People turned. Music died. Conversations dropped mid-sentence. I felt my heart hammer against my ribs. "This wasn't planned," Daniel said, voice steady. "But I need everyone to hear this." Veronica froze in the doorway. "My daughter was insulted tonight," he said. "By my own mother." A ripple moved through the crowd like heat. "She told Ivy she isn't a daughter," he continued. "She told her she's mommy's regret." Silence. Complete, painful silence. "Let me make this very clear," he said. "Ivy is my family. If anyone cannot accept that, they are not welcome in our lives. Not now. Not ever." Someone dropped a glass. Sophie's face went bright red. Henry looked like someone had unplugged him from reality. "Mom, Dad," Daniel said. "You need to leave." Veronica's voice cracked. "Daniel, Don't you dare. But he wasn't listening. He came back to me, to Ivy. Let's go, he said softly. And just like that, we walked out of my wedding, not running, not crying, just walking out of a room full of people who finally saw what I had been trying not to admit. This wasn't over, not even close. And whatever came next, I wasn't ready for it. But they were. If you want to know how I ended up standing at my wedding watching my 6-year-old get emotionally gutted in front of 107 people, we have to go back a little. Not far, just far enough to remind myself that I was not always this steady, this sure, this woman who walked out of a ballroom holding her daughter like a shield. Before Daniel, there was Mark. If you've never dated a man who could charm your entire friend group while simultaneously setting fire to his own life, consider yourself blessed. Mark was handsome, funny, and the kind of broke that feels romantic when you're 22 and running on caffeine and delusion. We were in college. We shared late-night takeout and stress and dreams. Then 2 pink lines appeared, and reality hit me like a falling piano. He said he was ready, then said he was just stressed, then said nothing at all because he was passed out drunk on the couch. The thing about loving someone who's drowning is that you start inhaling water too. The night he nearly dropped newborn Ivy because he couldn't stand straight, something in me snapped. I packed a bag, put my 3-month-old in the car seat, and left before the sun came up. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just left. The custody battle wasn't a battle. It was a paperwork formality. The judge looked at the missed tests, the police incident, the absence of any evidence he remembered Ivy existed, and handed me full custody without blinking. And then Mark vanished. No calls. No visits. Not so much as a "happy birthday, kid" scrawled on a gas station card. So it was me and Ivy against the world. I worked 3 jobs at once: babysitting, part-time admin assistant, whatever paid enough to keep the lights on. I learned that exhaustion can feel spiritual when it's protecting someone small. People love the phrase, "single moms are superheroes," but all it really means is, we don't know how you're alive. But good luck. Eventually, I landed a full-time job at a company that had more glass walls than employees. I started at the bottom. I worked late. I brought leftover snacks home from conference rooms like I was raiding a pantry designed by a billionaire raccoon, and that's where I met Daniel. He wasn't the shiny, arrogant heir people whispered about. He was the guy who brought me the wrong coffee for 3 days in a row before admitting he'd been too nervous to ask what I liked. He was funny in that quiet way that sneaks up on you. He listened. He showed up. The first time he met Ivy was an accident. I'd been forced to bring her to work when her daycare closed early. She sat under my desk with a coloring book, silent and serious. Daniel crouched down beside her, tie askew, tired eyes soft. "What are you drawing?" he asked. "Cats," she said. "How many?" he asked. She shrugged. "All of them." He grinned. "That's a solid plan." She looked at him like he'd just passed a test she didn't know she was giving. It wasn't some Disney moment, but it was real, gentle, unforced. That's when I started thinking maybe, just maybe, life could be good again. Then came the part no one prepares you for, meeting your new partner's parents when you come with a child and a history. Daniel drove us to his parents' house, a mansion with a lawn so perfect it looked like it held its breath. "Remember," he warned, "they're very particular." Translation: they think their furniture has a higher net worth than most people. Veronica opened the door with a smile so polished I could see my future anxiety in it. "Kara," she said, looking me up and down like she was scanning a dress code violation. "You look different than I expected." "What did you expect?" I asked before my brain could stop me. Something flickered in her expression. "A bit more corporate," she said. "But this is lovely." Henry shook my hand like I was applying for a job he didn't want me to get. Then came the first real punch. "And you have a daughter," he said to Daniel, "from a previous relationship." Not said to me. Said about me. Right in front of me. Daniel's jaw twitched. Veronica smiled kindly, the worst type of smile. "It's admirable," she said to me. "Truly, single mothers have to work so hard." I bit down on the urge to say something illegal. Dinner was worse. So, Henry said casually, cutting into his steak. "You could have had anyone, but you chose someone who already did the hard part for someone else?" Daniel set his fork down with a quiet, dangerous grace. "Dad." "What?" Henry said. "It's just a question." It was a warning. I just didn't know how loud yet. They met Ivy a few weeks later. Veronica walked into our tiny apartment like she was touring a historical site. "Oh, this is cozy." Ivy hid behind my leg, clutching her stuffed giraffe. Veronica knelt down. "So this is Ivy," she said. "How sweet. You must feel very lucky to be here." Ivy blinked. She didn't know what being lucky meant yet, but she understood tone. Sophie hovered behind them, scrolling on her phone. "She's quiet," she noted. "I thought she'd be more active." "She's shy," I said. Sophie shrugged like she'd solved a small mystery. After they left, Ivy crawled onto my lap and asked, "Mom, am I lucky to go there? Or am I just visiting?" It took everything in me not to cry. Birthdays and holidays came and went. Sophie got jewelry and spa days. Ivy got sweaters, puzzles, and a lecture about gratitude. Veronica made comments about exposure to nicer things and broadening horizons. Ivy shrank a little more each time. Daniel tried. He really did. "They don't mean it," he'd say. "They're just old-fashioned." Old-fashioned is calling dinner supper. This was something else entirely. And every time Ivy whispered some new quiet insecurity, "Mom, do they like me? Do I belong there?" A new crack formed inside me. When Daniel proposed, it wasn't on a beach or at a fancy restaurant. It was at my kitchen table, with Ivy watching intently. He asked her first. "Can I marry your mom?" he said. "Will you still read bedtime stories?" she asked. "Every night," he said. "Okay," she said. Then yes. It should have been perfect. But his parents reacted like he'd announced we were holding the wedding in a gas station. Veronica clapped a bit too stiffly. "Lovely," she said. "We'll just have to make sure everything is appropriate." They pushed for a huge wedding. They insisted Ivy needed a small role so she wouldn't be overwhelmed. They suggested she sit with a nanny. Daniel shut it down. "She's standing with us." The tension simmered. In hindsight, the wedding wasn't a surprise. It was the inevitable finale of a story I hadn't wanted to admit we were living. They'd spent years trying to make me feel like I didn't belong. At the wedding, they finally aimed at the easier target, my daughter. And that was the moment everything broke. The moment I realized they were never going to stop. And they hadn't even started yet. The morning after the wedding felt like waking up after a hurricane. One of those quiet, eerie ones where the sky is too blue and nothing feels real yet. I opened my eyes to the sound of a tiny sniff. Ivy was curled at the foot of our bed, knees tucked under her chin, clutching her stuffed giraffe like it was the only solid thing in the universe. "Mom?" she whispered. "Is Grandma mad at me?" The question hit me like a punch to the ribs. Daniel sat up beside me, rubbing his face with both hands like he was trying to scrub the entire previous night off his skin. He looked wrecked. We both did. "No," I said. "You didn't do anything wrong." She hesitated. "Then why did she say I'm what's that word again?" Nothing you ever have to be, I said quickly. She nodded, but her eyes told me she didn't believe it yet. We got dressed in silence, the air thick with exhaustion and something I didn't want to name. Fear. Not for us, for her, for the tiny crack they'd managed to put in her. We'd slammed the door on his parents last night. We both thought that meant something. Spoiler, it didn't. People love drama until they have to sit next to it. By Monday, whispers were floating through every room I stepped into. Not that anyone said anything directly to me. No, this was the polite kind of gossip. The kind people whisper behind folders and in hallways with the subtlety of teenagers. I heard she told the girl she wasn't a daughter. I heard he kicked them out. I heard she screamed. I didn't scream, for the record. It was worse. I swallowed every single word. Daniel kept getting messages he ignored, then messages he couldn't ignore, then messages from people who pretended to check in but were obviously fishing. His parents, though? Silence. A dangerous kind of silence. The kind predators use when they're deciding what to bite next. It took about a week for the official news to drop. I knew something was coming when I saw Daniel walk through the front door one evening looking hollow, like someone had scooped out all his certainty and replaced it with something sharp. He didn't say anything at first, just sat at the dining table with his head in his hands. Someone die? I said lightly, because humor is the only coping mechanism I haven't had to put in therapy. Close, he muttered. I sat across from him. Okay, hit me. He looked up, eyes red around the edges. They're out, he said. Out where? He exhaled. Out of their jobs. I blinked. You're kidding. No. I pressed my palms flat on the table. How? Emergency meetings, he said. After the wedding. Because of what they said to Ivy? I asked. Because everyone saw, he said. People who matter. People who can't unsee it. He ran a hand through his hair. And because they've been slipping for a while. But this was the last straw. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I didn't do anything except sit there and try to breathe normally while the world tilted a little. And you? I asked. He laughed, but it sounded like it hurt. They offered me the position. Your father's? He nodded. Oh. I didn't know whether to hug him, or pour a drink, or ask if he was okay, or all three. How are you feeling? I asked. I feel like someone dropped a throne on my lap, he said, and then set it on fire. Sounds healthy, I said. He didn't smile. They're going to blame you, he said finally. Both of them. I know. My voice didn't shake, but my stomach did. And they're going to blame Ivy, he added, barely above a whisper. 2 days later, they came to our house. No warning. No call. Just the doorbell being stabbed repeatedly until Daniel answered it looking like a man walking into an ambush. Henry pushed past him first. Veronica followed, face stiff like she'd practiced crying and couldn't get the tears to cooperate. I stood in the living room, and I swear, for a second, it felt like the temperature dropped. This is your doing, Henry snapped at Daniel. All of it. You embarrassed us, Veronica said, pointing at me like I was the raccoon that knocked over her trash. You made a scene. You humiliated us in front of everyone, and now, they've taken everything from us. Daniel didn't flinch. I didn't make you say what you said. It was a misunderstanding, she shrieked. To a 6-year-old? He shot back. Henry stepped forward. You will go to them, he said. You will fix this. You will tell them your wife manipulated you. Daniel's voice cut in like a whip. No! You owe us, Henry growled. I owe Ivy more, Daniel said. The silence that followed could have cracked the walls. Veronica's voice dropped to something ugly. If you don't fix this, you're done. With us. No inheritance. No family. Nothing. Daniel laughed. Actually laughed. It was short and bitter and sounded like something snapping. Keep it, he said. If money means that much to you, keep every cent. For a moment, nobody breathed. Then Henry turned to me. This is your fault, he said. You dragged him down to your level. My level? I said. You mean a level where children don't get verbally kicked in the stomach? He stepped closer, not touching me, but close enough that I smelled whatever expensive soap he used to wash off guilt. You have no idea what you've started, he said. There it was. The truth he'd been carrying under all that outrage. Not sorrow, not regret. Threat. Daniel stepped between us so fast I barely saw him move. This conversation is over, he said. Leave. Veronica inhaled sharply. You'll regret this, she whispered. Ivy stood in the hallway behind us, holding her stuffed giraffe and watching her grandparents like they were strangers. Daniel closed the door in their faces. Lock. Click. Silence. Ivy patted forward. Her voice was soft. Are they coming back? No, I said. I wanted it to be true. I wanted to believe that losing their positions would finally shut them down. She nodded, but she didn't look convinced. Daniel leaned against the door like he could hold back the world with his shoulders. I touched his arm. You okay? I whispered. He nodded. He wasn't okay. None of us were. Because even though their jobs were gone, their power was gone, their public image was cracked. The look Henry gave me stayed lodged under my skin like a thorn. It said, this isn't over. And the worst part? I believed him. Because people like them don't disappear. They regroup, and they always go for the weak spot, which, in our case, meant Ivy. I didn't know how yet, or when, or what shape it would take, but I could feel it coming, like thunder beneath the floorboards. I thought losing their positions would tame them. Spoiler, it didn't. Some people lose power and learn humility. Henry and Veronica lost power and immediately went shopping for new weapons. The first sign was a letter addressed to me with alarming confidence, the kind of envelope that looks like it should come with a soundtrack. I opened it at the kitchen table while Ivy was drawing a cat with 6 legs, because more legs means more hugs. I was halfway through admiring her alien animal masterpiece when my eyes hit the word custody. My stomach hit the floor. Daniel? I said, voice too calm to be real. He walked in, saw my face, and went still. Bad? I slid the papers toward him. Worse. He read, blinked, swore under his breath. It's from Mark, he said. He's filing for joint custody? I laughed, sharp and humorless. He can't even manage custody of himself. He hasn't seen her in 6 years, Daniel said. How is he suddenly concerned about her well-being? I didn't have to answer. My phone buzzed. Voicemail. I played it. Hey, Kara, a voice slurred. Mark. So, I met some people. They said I should step up, you know? Be a dad. They're helping me get a lawyer. We'll talk soon. Click. Daniel stared at the phone. Some people, he repeated. Yeah, I said. I wonder who. The silence in our kitchen was thick enough to spread on toast. The next hit came 3 days later. A knock at the door. Polite, professional, deadly. Hi, the woman said, flashing a badge. I'm with Child Protective Services. We received a report. I swear my heart stopped. Ivy peeked around the corner. Mom? Who is... It's okay. I said quickly, even though it wasn't even in the neighborhood of okay. CPS lady stepped inside, clipboard ready to judge my entire motherhood by the placement of my throw pillows. The report mentions possible neglect, she said, and emotional instability in the home. Emotional instability, I repeated. Well, I did cry at a Disney movie once, but... Daniel squeezed my arm. Translation: stop joking before they think you're unhinged. We showed her the kitchen, the clean living room, Ivy's room, complete with stuffed animal explosion. Ivy clung to me the entire time, small fingers sticky with crayon wax and fear. The woman knelt down. Do you feel safe here? She asked gently. Ivy nodded so hard I thought her neck might snap. My mom makes pancakes, she said. Good ones. The woman smiled at that. It helped. A little. When she left, she said, At this time, I don't see anything alarming. Ivy asked, Am I in trouble? No, I said. Are they going to take me away? No, I said again. This time I wasn't lying, but the fact that she had to ask, that broke something in me I didn't know was still breakable. The custody hearing was exactly the circus I expected. Mark showed up looking like someone had ironed him badly. His lawyer, paid for by two vindictive retirees with too much time, tried to spin a narrative about wanting to reconnect and concerns about Ivy's stability. The judge asked Mark where he lived. He hesitated. Asked about employment. He hesitated harder. Asked about sobriety. He failed. A test. On the spot. Daniel squeezed my hand, and for a second I thought I might cry right there, not from fear this time, but from a grief I hadn't let myself feel about how small a man Ivy's biological father really was. The judge denied the petition so fast, the sound of the gavel felt like a door slamming shut on years of dread. It was over, except it wasn't. Because losing didn't stop Henry and Veronica. It only made them desperate. And desperate people are dangerous. After the custody disaster, things got quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Calm before a tsunami quiet. Daniel threw himself into his new role. I pretended not to notice how often he came home looking like someone had wrung the life out of him and hung him up to dry. Then one night he came in late, later than late, face pale. We need to talk, he said. My heart dropped. Who died? Not who. His voice cracked. What? He sat heavily at the table, rubbed his eyes, then said it. They found fraud. At the company. Whose? I asked, even though part of me already knew. He didn't answer right away. He just looked at me, long, tired, hollow. My parents, he said. The room tilted. Like, the tax kind of fraud? I asked. Like the felony kind, he said. I sat back. Well, I guess they finally found a hobby. He didn't laugh. Kara, this is bad. Years of siphoning money, fake expenses, misreported accounts. Auditors found things in places they shouldn't even exist. Why didn't anyone notice before? I asked. They hid it well, he said. Too well. But when leadership changes, people look closer. They found everything. I stared at him. And what happens now? He swallowed. The board forwarded it to authorities. Because of you? No, he said firmly. Because it's their legal obligation. But could you have stopped them? I asked. He looked at me with something fragile in his eyes. Should I have? I thought of Ivy, her quiet, shaking fear, her asking if someone would take her away, her small body pressed into mine while a stranger scanned our home for danger that wasn't there. No, I said. You shouldn't have. Daniel nodded once, like he'd been waiting to hear me say it. The next months were a blur of fallout. Henry and Veronica lawyered up. They negotiated. They panicked. In the end, they signed a deal that stripped away everything they'd ever hoarded. The house? Sold. The cars? Gone. The reputation? Ashes. The friends? Suddenly silent. The invitations? Vanished. They avoided serious prison time because apparently money can buy good lawyers even when you're rapidly running out of it, but they didn't walk away unscathed. Not by a long shot. They moved into a much smaller place, the kind with neighbors, and recycling bins, and no staff. Someone sent me a screenshot of a news article. Their names were trending. Not for good reasons. I didn't read the comments. I didn't need to. Ivy slept through the night again. She stopped asking if she was a regret. She started drawing cats with 4 legs again. Normal ones. She called Daniel Dad without hesitation. He cried in the pantry, quietly, thinking I didn't hear. People ask me sometimes if I feel vindicated. I don't. I feel relieved, tired, protective, human. Sometimes I wonder if we went too far letting everything play out. If we should have stepped in. If maybe, somewhere beneath all the cruelty, there'd once been something good in them. Then I remember Ivy's small voice asking, "Why did she say I'm not a daughter?" And I know the answer. So you tell me, did we go too far letting his parents lose everything? Or after they tried to rip my daughter out of my arms, was it exactly what they deserved?